Good morning, everybody. It's just on to 9 o'clock. Okay, so welcome for those of you who've already joined. I see we have already almost 50 participants, and I think it's an important session that we should be having. From my side, I'm Anisa Musa, the coordinator of the National Shelter Movement of South Africa. Welcome formally again to those of you who have already joined this webinar. We're going to be discussing trafficking in persons. Specifically, Mr. Buti Kulwane will take us through some legislation, mandates, legal frameworks, accreditation requirements and processes. So I'm glad that you are all here. We know those of you who are working in the shelter space, trafficking in persons is becoming more and more of a prevalence, and we're dealing with victims on a more frequent basis than previously. Yes, I think what we should do is so that we can give other people a chance to join. Just give another 5 minutes or just maybe 4 minutes and start at 9:05 if everybody is happy with that. Okay, thank you everybody for your patience and understanding. Okay, so we'll just give everybody a few more minutes. I see our numbers have moved up very, very quickly. Always makes us happy to see people are taking advantage of this platform. Good morning again. For those of you who I greeted earlier, for those of you who I haven't greeted before, a very good morning to you. I know we're quickly approaching or have already skipped autumn and almost into winter. So thank you for joining us on this overcast and chilly morning, wherever you are logging in from. I see Buti is on. So Mr. Kulwane, I'm going to introduce you. To our participants, and then I'm going to hand over to you because I'm expecting that there's going to be quite a bit of engagement or questions. And Mr. Kulwani, you will be able to share your presentation and also, um, you know, decide whether you want to take questions as we go along or you want to do a quick Q&A at the end. In the meantime, I'm just going to do a quick bio. Mr. Kulwani grew up in Karankawa and matriculated in Mondiri High School. He studied at the Wits University and completed his social work degree and later completed a master's degree in public and development management. Currently, Mr. Kulwani is social work policy manager, the transnational organized crime or human trafficking at the Department of Social Development since 2014, and that's a very, very long time. Well done, Mr. Kulwani, and thank you for agreeing to spend your morning with us. We've had a few, since last year, we've had several trafficking in persons workshops and webinars, just getting people to become familiar with the concepts, some of the difficulties, some of the gaps. And this was a need that was raised in one of the previous ones because we do know that shelters are already dealing with trafficking in persons, and so we thought it would be a good space for you to assist us and bring us up to speed about what's required options to be able to deal with victims of trafficking. So, without further ado, thank you, Mr. Kulwani, and I hand over to you.
Okay, I hope this is gonna work. I am hearing an echo. I'm not sure whether it's well, it's something that can be fixed. Um, can it be fixed? Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Miss Musa and Ethan. And good morning, everyone, colleagues and activists here in the space of GBD. I, I'm not sure. I really feel uncomfortable hearing myself.
You're doing great, Mr. Kulwani.
Am I? Okay. No, the thing is, I talk and then thereafter I hear myself, and
But listening to yourself is a good communication skill. We all should be listening to ourselves when we talk, just by the way, and on a lighter note.
okay. Yeah, I'll try. I'll do my best. Um, the what is it? Zoom. I'm not that familiar with it, and to load my
Yes, we
present.
are
Oh,
on
I do
Zoom. Do
see
you need a
share.
bit of assistance to share your screen?
No, let me try this side. I think I do see a share sign this side. Yes, yeah.
Do you
Well,
need a little
thanks
bit
for
of assistance?
the no. Let me try first.
Okay.
Because then if you share on my behalf, it becomes very difficult because each time I would have to ask you next slide, and I think that takes time. Okay. Yes, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, and I think in government, 10 years, I think, seemed like just 12 months. Yeah, I mean, I've worked in other places before, and I was able to keep following as to where am I, in terms of career development. But with government, yeah, I think things really move slowly. So by 10 months, 10 years, you're not even sure if you've really accumulated anything in terms of, knowledge and stuff. But it's quite a challenging environment. And the good thing is, we are here to change people's lives. Yes, let me share my slides. That is my presentation. Um, let's my apology. Let me see, share, and then share. I'll have to set for the presentation. There it is. Share. Are you seeing it on the screen,
There we
please?
go, Mr. Kulwane. Okay,
Okay.
so we can
Um,
see your screen. You can just, yeah, okay. There you
all
go.
right. Um, yes. Well, I think I would have to remove this. The video won't be necessary. I think colleagues can see me. Like we do have AI these days. I may claim to be presenting only to find that I've given it to AI and the AI is doing it on my behalf. So yeah, yeah. But I'll have to then switch off the video. Yes. It is about the accreditation of shelters. And as colleagues, you all know that the legislation we are implementing is the Prevention and Combating of Trafficking in Persons Act of number 7 of 2013. So this presentation is to the National Shelter Movement of South Africa. We've been, yes. Um, well, I just thought maybe let me start off with, this kind of introduction. Why are we involved in uh, victim empowerment? Focusing mainly on victims of gender-based violence, and in particular, those of domestic violence. And now that we are also targeting victims of trafficking in persons, there's one common thing in all these victims, and it is trauma. When I came in and somehow interacting with victims, when I came into the victim empowerment space, I think one common thing that I picked up is we are dealing with highly traumatized people. Fortunately, I used to work in an environment where I dealt with trauma. I used to be in the gold mining industries. And in gold, we would have a mine accident, rock falls, fatal ones, and with other colleagues witnessing, those incidents and having to then be, dealt with, yeah, in sort of dealing with trauma. Yes, but then I said, let me start off with this. Victims that are sitting in our shelters, because of trauma and stress, somehow what we have to do is to counter the effects of trauma and stress on them. And how do we encounter them? How do you counter them? I sort of bumped into what you are seeing on your screen. This lady, Open, I think Giligachi Melody, who is a guidance counselor. Yeah, these things, it's sort of coming up and on my screen. Yes, she's a guidance counselor and also a some kind. Oh, your colleagues. My apology. I don't know what is happening. Um, sure. Colleagues, I think I'm no longer seeing my screen. I'm seeing Anissa's name, and I'm not sure.
Sorry, Buti, I see there's a hand up.
Supposed to be.
Samkilisiwe,
Um,
before you continue, I see her hand was
oh
up
yes,
once.
yes, I'm seeing the screen now.
And Sarah.
Okay. The name, Opan Kiligachi Melody, a garden counselor and addiction therapist, and based in Nigeria. Well, she talks about the feel-good hormones, dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and oxytocin. I think when we are sitting in shelters, it should be our aim, to trigger these hormones, yeah, in our clients or victims. And then she shows, quite simple ways of triggering these. Like, for instance, as you can see with natural serotonin, just body stretch, sitting quietly in nature, practice gratitude, go for a short walk, get the sunlight for 5 to 10 minutes, and then you can get oxytocin by spending time face to face, helping someone out, hugging someone, something that we don't do, and petting an animal or giving genuine compliment. And then with endorphins, a quick workout, laughing out loud, dancing to a song, do deep breathing, taking a warm shower, and with dopamine, you making your bed, taking a cold shower, writing a short to-do list, finishing one small task, and cleaning a small space. What dopamine does, as she says, it thrives on completion, on clarity, and on momentum. These short to-do lists and small wins that you achieve, tidying your own space, it can give your brain a sense of progress, which is essential to motivate you. Serotonin has to do with mood stability, calmness, and also emotional grounding. So when it is supported, you find that people can think more clearly, they can react less intensely and feel more anchored in themselves. Endorphins, they will bring some energy, relief, and a sense of lightness. The body is reminded that joy and vitality are still available in very, very difficult times. So then where oxytocin, it will complete the picture by strengthening connection, trust, and a sense of belonging. So it's like as human beings, we do belong. We're not like aliens, isolated. Reminds us that there's need for co-regulation. Yeah, as it is a biological need. It's not a weakness when you are connected to other people. Some people may think that, this is some kind of dependency. But yes, in African language, they say, umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. So when this connection is present, everything else becomes easier for one to sustain. So I felt, let me share this. Why? Because I take it this is what we're supposed to be aiming for in shelter as we are dealing with traumatized and stressed human beings. Yeah, this is some kind of an introduction. Instead of just talking about what trafficking is and also accreditation and the like. This is what we are about. If we fail to do these things, then we are not achieving anything in our programs. I hope we all agree with me. Yes. Okay. Then, okay, second slide. Well, the presentation outline, as you can see, we'll be looking at identification and management of the victim of trafficking, and also the mandate of the department in implementation of the Act, that is the Trafficking in Persons Act. The regulations that we had to develop as the department, and then also the directives, both to enable us to implement the Act. And then there's also accreditation of our organizations. Well, in the Act refers to organizations, but we also refer to shelters, and shelters are organizations. But in addition to organizations, we're supposed to also be accrediting programs. It's like those kinds of programs that bring smile to people, that sort of help people regulate their emotions. If we are to get such programs, because these are the programs that would change our people for the better, we would certainly accredit them. But then the accreditation is also informed by the norms and minimum standards. My predecessor had to do extensive consultation, on the norms and minimum standards, which then informed the program and also the accreditation. In accreditation, number 6, you see it's developmental quality assurance. We had to develop tools, to enable us to ensure quality, assure quality, yes. And that is with organizations, quality of services to our clients. Then the challenges and recommendations. I would touch on a few of these. There are many, but I think I tried to sort of zoom into those that seem to be of priority. When we look at the overview, that is the care and management of victims, you can see there are 4 kind of levels here. You would set immediate, which is identification and reporting. And there's also the short-term intervention, those referrals. And then you can see there's also extracting or protecting. That means people that are being trafficked, being extracted or rescued from wherever they are trafficked, and also providing protection. And there's also assessment that has to be conducted. And as you can see, the leading department in assessment is the Department of Social Development. Then in the midterm, you would have an investigation that is conducted by law enforcement. We are also partly involved, but it's law enforcement. You see Home Affairs there. You see the NPA. They refer to it as prosecutor-led investigation. Yes, but in that process, as the person, when all these things are happening, there's need for care and management of the victim. And as you can see, we are leading as the Department of Social Development, and everyone else provides support to this in a particular victim. And then in the long term, there will certainly be prosecution of the trafficker. And then if there's need for compensation of the victim, that's something that would be looked into. All this being led by NPA. And you know that justice would then have to sentence the trafficker. And then from there, then the victim would have to be returned back home, even whether it's within the country or it's outside of the country. And expectations are that the person would have to be reintegrated into the family and community. And this is, as you can see, it's led by ourselves, but Home Affairs and DERCO are also involved. Yes, yeah, this is the situation. Yes, then when you talk what I think it's the definition of trafficking in persons. You would have to have an act that is the act that is the any action that is done. You can see here selling of a person, delivering of a person, receiving them, also just recruiting them, transferring, exchanging, leasing, and the person who does the transporting, harboring them somewhere else, or adopting or forcing a person into marriage. These are the acts. And if it happens that one of these activities was done, then we would look into the means, the how part. How was it done? A person can be coerced, a person can be threatened to be harmed, a person can be kidnapped. They can also, because they are vulnerable, someone can abuse their vulnerability. They can be taken or fraudulently deceived as a or threatened or using of force and abduction. These are the means. We have to also check if one of these did happen, one or few of these did happen when we assess. And then finally, the purpose being exploitation. There's a exploitation, it could be slavery or practices that are similar to slavery. It can be sexual exploitation, servitude. Sometimes people are being trafficked for their body parts or organs. And sometimes it's forced labor or services, or it can be child labor. There's also situations where a lady was impregnated against her will for the purpose of selling the baby when it is born. So if one or more of these acts, means, and a purpose are found in a person, then the conclusion would be there are elements of trafficking. That means the person could have been trafficked. So this is the definition, and also as I was explaining, how trafficking happens. But when it comes to a child, a victim is a child, you can see we do have the act, and then we also have the purpose. And we do not have to worry about the means. Why? Because a child under 18 cannot consent to being with another person or to be moved from one place to the other. The people that are supposed to consent are the guardians or parents. So if it happens that it's a child, we only look at the act and the purpose, which is exploitation, for us to conclude that indeed this is child trafficking. Yes. Yeah, that was just a brief background, just for us to understand what is it when we talk about trafficking in person. The Prevention and Combating of Trafficking in Persons Act number 7 of 2013. All role players do have their own mandates. That is your law enforcement, justice, NGOs, everyone else. But then when it comes to the Social Development Department, our mandate is in implementing this act is to provide protection, care, support, and healing to victims. This is in line with Pillar 4 of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. Our officials are trained to identify, to conduct assessments, and to continually support victims who are admitted in shelters and those who are being reintegrated back into their families and communities. All individuals that are suspected to have been trafficked have to be assessed by a social worker. And as you can see, this is in terms of Section 19, subsection 8. And this is to determine that they were trafficked. And the act says once we pick up that there was an act, a means and exploitation, then we process the issuing of a letter of recognition, which has to be issued by the provincial head of social development. This is how we deal with victims. And in addition, ourselves as DSD, we have to issue accreditation certificates to organizations, to shelters, and to programs that are found to be compliant with the standards for provision of services to victims of trafficking. So as you can see, we provide services directly to victims, and we also have to provide services, I think, to organizations, to shelters and programs, just to ensure that these services are compliant and meet the needs of the victims. So then we had to develop regulations in terms of Section 43, subsection 3. Our minister had to make regulations regarding the manner in which victims are to be assessed, and also before the issuing of a letter of recognition by the head of social development. Also regulation on the manner in which the head of the province may withdraw this letter of recognition, and the manner in which an appeal by the affected victim and in which the MSc of social development must deal with the victim's appeal. Also, regulations on development of a system of accreditation of organizations that provide services to victims. We had to develop norms and minimum standards for services, the circumstances in which the accredited organizations qualify for financial awards, and also monitoring and evaluation to maintain quality service for the victims. The manner in which the victims are to be referred from social development to the Department of Home Affairs and to be returned back to their countries of origin or areas within the Republic from where they were trafficked. We know that people can be trafficked from one province to another, or maybe from one district to another. We have to ensure that it's a seamless process of reintegrating this person
Okay,
with their
Mr.
loved one.
Kulwane. Sorry, can I just interrupt you there? Mentioned a little bit earlier, we have some participants who have their hands raised.
Oh,
I
yes.
don't know. We've got 5 people whose hands are raised. They've had it up since just at the beginning of the webinar. I don't know who wants to unmute and speak, comment, to ask. We have Same Keliswe, whose hands have been up since the very beginning. And then we have Lerato. We have Tobeka. I don't know if anyone wants to unmute and comment.
Okay, no, I'll take this. I think I'll have to apologize because
No,
on
no, no,
my
it's fine.
screen,
I'll
I
help
don't
you
see
with
it.
that. But I just want
Oh,
to
yes,
check.
thanks.
The ones unmuted, I don't know. Their hands are raised. I don't know if they realize that their hands are raised. Okay, should you require to comment, then maybe you can just put something in the chat box or
Mhm.
somehow signal me, and then I will attend to you, or Mr. Kulwani will take your question or comment. Sorry, Mr. Kulwani.
No, it's okay. I think, at the end, that's when I'll be able to take questions if colleagues don't mind.
Okay, that's perfect.
All right, sure. Thanks. Okay, as I said, we had to develop regulation. But in implementation of the regulations, we came up with forms. These are specific forms that are being utilized in the implementation of the program. As you can see, Form 1 speaks to reporting of a child suspected to be a victim of trafficking. This is what is referred to as Form 22, that is being used by child protection. We had to take it as it is, didn't do anything to it. Yes, yeah. And then form number 2 is notification for placing a victim of trafficking at an accredited organization or what we call temporary safe care. Form 3, that's the one used by social workers to assess whether a person is a victim of trafficking. And then the fourth form, that is our letter of recognition to be issued by the HOD. Then 5, that is the one used to appeal to the provincial MEC, against a decision of the HOD. If maybe the HOD didn't issue a letter of recognition, or maybe a letter of recognition was withdrawn, so they can appeal to the MEC. We made sure that if the period of appeal is exceeded, then there's also a condonation for late lodging of an appeal, which is Form 6. Form 7, that is the one on application for accreditation of an organization to provide services. Then Form 8 is the certificate of accreditation to the organization that has to provide services. And then 9 is granting certificate of accreditation. And then Form 10, it's a 90 days written notice if an organization want to terminate, their accreditation. And then 11, it's acknowledgement of receipt. 12, it's collection of information on victims of trafficking. This one is very, very important, because then in shelters, victims are sitting there, then we need to be able to report. So then this one helps us in collecting that information. Number 13 is assessment of the victim's need. And I think, within the shelter, what are the needs of the victims that would help, in coming up with a plan of, servicing that particular victim. And number 14, that is referral of, they said it, of a foreign national to the Department of Home Affairs, because sometimes we find that the person wasn't trafficked and has to be referred to the Department of Home Affairs for them to do the deportation if they have entered the country illegally. Yes, and are not trafficking victims. Yes, with the directives, Section 44, subsection 6. Well, let me say, these are directives on the manner in which the victim of trafficking must be identified, must be interviewed, and must be treated. And this is in particular attention to the vulnerability of children. So we know that children are more vulnerable. We have to be sensitive. And then also directives on the referral of these victims to social services, to health services, and also psychosocial services. And colleagues, these are not speaking only to social development, but all role players. And in terms of subsection 44, subsection 11, the directives and national instructions of the SAPS, they must provide adequate disciplinary steps to be taken against any police official, any prosecutor, any other functional, including social workers, who fail to comply with a duty that imposed on them in terms of this act. So which means we have to do things, according to their expectations, or disciplinary action can be taken against us. Okay, with accreditation of organizations and programs, As you can see, Section 24, subsection 1 stipulates that an adult victim of trafficking may only be referred to an accredited organization. And subsection 2 says our minister must prescribe a system of accreditation and the circumstances in which accredited organizations qualify for financial assistance. And as you can see, it's within the available resources. We came up with 3 models of accreditation for shelters and programs. The first model speaks to temporary safe care. With temporary safe care, a suspected victim can be placed in safe care for a period of about 72 hours, sometimes to a week. This happens in situations where there are no accredited, fully accredited shelters nearby. So then law enforcement is supposed to place the person in temporary accreditation when arrangements are being made to move them to an accredited organization. Then the second model speaks to accommodation, counseling, and reintegration. So these are shelters and centers. They also cater for an adult who has who is in the company of a child who is a victim. So then they have to ensure that the shelter is able to receive and also care and also develop a child. And I think this is what shelters have been doing, because we know that our shelters are open to adult victims in the company of minor children. So then they do comply. And then the third one speaks to rehabilitation and therapeutic services, or education and skills development. So then these are the programs that you are supposed to accredit that has to be offered within the shelters. Okay, and then with program accreditation, education and skills acquisition, we know that in victim empowerment, people are supposed to be developed, acquire skills and also complete their education. But at the same time, there's also need for therapeutic interventions and rehabilitation. So these are the programs that we are looking into. Unfortunately, we do not have programs that we've accredited. We only have one program referred to as Restoration and Healing, the 9-week program, which sort of touches on education, on therapeutic program, on also on developmental activities. So then that's the only program that has been accredited. We will need more programs to accredit. And then when you speak to a accredited organization, as you can see that the definitions here say an organization, including a government institution, that is accredited in terms of Section 24 to provide services to adult victims of trafficking. This is the definition that appears in the Act. So we know that as a funded organization, in managing the organization, we use like our integrated service delivery model. Resources are allocated, and there's monitoring of their use, and this is in partnership between the department and the civil society organization, and the two have to sign a service level agreement. There's also quality assurance, meaning there's developmental quality assurance process that has to be followed. So when we talk of the accreditation process, we have like I would say these 3 levels. As you can see, the first step would be site verification team. This is appointed by the provincial department to verify the existence of the service provider site. We, we cannot just go and verify that it's existing. Hence, we came up with the DQA tool. The DQA tool, we use it
I don't know
to
if if you
assess.
want to add something.
I don't know.
And
I'm
Lois
hearing.
said if I want to ask him,
Okay,
she
yes.
asked me.
Sorry, I
I told
hear
her if you do send a thank you
that
mail, but my
someone's
Wi-Fi was off last night.
unmuted.
So that's why I'm
Celeste,
sending it now. And then she said, "Oh, do you want to ask him about the salary?" I said, just one sec.
sorry, we have a couple of
I
people who
don't.
are
Do you know what I'm
I'm not
unmuted.
saying?
sure whether the question is to me. Or,
Oh, okay.
okay, I see.
Concern your salary to you.
Okay. I'm not sure if
All
I
right.
can answer that.
Cynthia is also unmuted.
Okay. Yeah, no, well, we cannot just go and verify the same site, but we also have to assess to be sure that it's compliant. Yes. Then the second one, we do have accreditation committees.
Sorry,
No, colleagues.
sorry, Mr. Kulwane. I think
Yes,
Cynthia, I think you're unmuted. If you could kindly mute yourself.
I think she's muted. Okay, the accreditation committees. We do have accreditation committees in provinces, and we also have the National Accreditation Committee. Currently, in trafficking, we are utilizing only the National Accreditation Committee. And the reason is we are not really accrediting too many. Unlike our colleagues in diversion services, they have too many organizations to accredit. In fact, what's supposed to happen is the Provincial Accreditation Committee should only accredit NGOs, whilst the National Accreditation Committee accredits state-run facilities. So if it is an NGO-run facility, it's supposed to be done in provinces. And then a state-run, it's supposed to be done in the National Accreditation Committee. But currently, we are doing all of them. Why? Because it's not many that we are accrediting in the trafficking space. So then all documents are brought to the National Accreditation Committee, where a decision is made whether to accredit or not. We also have a DQA panel that is conduct scheduled DQAs as and when the need arises. Yeah, what I do is I encourage provinces. In fact, I advise provinces to encourage organizations to use the tool on an annual basis. That is, conduct self-assessment on an annual basis instead of waiting for 4 years when the accreditation status has to be renewed. Because if they assess themselves on an annual basis, it becomes easier for them after 4 years, because then they will sort of maintain quality services, and there will also be improvement. Yes, as you can see, section 24 subsection 5 says a DQA process must be conducted in a manner prescribed by the Minister of Social Development in respect of each accredited organization. Yes. Okay. These are the 23 norms that were developed. As I said, my predecessor has done most of the work. And then we developed the tools in line with these norms, and then came up with a standard. So then the DQA tool that we use answers questions that respond to these norms. I don't have to go through all of them, but when you receive the presentation, then you can maybe read through. But then what happened is those norms that I've just shared, we use them to develop the D2A tool. As you can see on the left-hand side, I think it's your left-hand side, number 1. These are the norms on management and administration of an organization. And then number 2 on your right-hand side is brown. It's looking at organizational capacity building and victim empowerment. And then the red one looks into health and safety. That's number 3. And the 4th, which is green, it's integrated counseling and support. We had to quantify these and to come up with scores, because the DQA tool itself has got so many questions. It's an 84-page document in which you answer questions, and then you have to get a score. We are, as you can see, the yellow part, it says the minimum score that the organization is supposed to achieve in management and administration has to be 110, which is 80% of the total score, which is 134. And with management admin, as you can see, we're looking at accountability, budget finance, management of staff members, and also effectiveness and efficiency of the organization. And same as the organizational capacity building, number 2, minimum score is 80, total is 100. We're looking at training and supervision, empowerment of victims, their ability to participate, to be integrated, and to also feel normal within the shelter. And then number 3, a total score of 200. We are expecting 160 as a minimum. We're looking at primary health, general safety and emergency, also child safety, and also food preparation. The last one, integrated counseling and support. We're looking at a minimum of 162, total being 202. This one is divided into 2, looking at appropriateness, victim-centered, family-centered, community-centered, family preservation, permanency planning, continuum, and blah, blah. But then an organization that applies for temporary safe care does not have to bother with the continuity questions around here. Remember, I said an organization that does temporary safe care would maybe keep a victim for 72 hours to a week. So then they don't really have to focus on the permanency. Yes. So, yeah. So then in this tool, our expectation is that, or maybe let me say how we score. If we are convinced that there's full compliance on a particular question, then you would give a score of 2. If the team feels that it's just partial compliance or it's in progress, they'll give a score of 1. If they are convinced that there's non-compliance, it will be a score of 0. So then for the organization to achieve 80%, they need to get a minimum score of 509 out of 636. 509 is 80%. Expectation is 509 and above. Yes. And then this one is just one of the pages, one of the 85 pages. This is how each page looks. As you can see, this one is on accountability. We must be able to account, and yeah, I can't see that. Yes, then with accountability, there are questions. As you can see under program elements, there's occurrence books. The occurrence book may be kept by the security or the official in charge during a specific shift, and there should also be a proper handover. The book can also be titled Incident Register. So if the team is convinced that there is an occurrence book, they'll give a score of 2, as you can see under yes. Then same as medical records, educational records of staff, a thorough written handover, and also minutes of meeting. So when the assessment is conducted, these are the things that they will be checking. If they are not convinced that it's full compliance, they will give you a score of 1. If they are convinced that there's nothing, it's going to be 0, and they'll give a score of 0. So that's how it's done. All this 85-page document is completed. Colleagues, maybe let me take questions if they are there. And then I would also like to stop sharing this for a while and put up the Excel sheet for us to complete it together, just for us to see how it works. Because then I did say to colleagues that the accreditation committee expects that the province has to do everything. I mustn't do. I used to do this for them on their behalf, but then, yeah, in future, expectations are they should do it themselves. So I hope, well, I will be allowed to do that. But maybe in the meantime, I can also take questions as I'm putting up the Excel sheet. Anissa, is it okay?
Thank you so much, Mr. Kulwane, for a very informative presentation. Also, thank you for giving us the opportunity to ask questions. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I see there are still 2 hands. Let me just check if they're new hands or is it from earlier. So Shiburi and see, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but see, Kwayita. I see 2 hands. Shiburi and Cindy Siwe. Cindy?
Hi, Anissa. Thank you for
Hi, Cindy.
this lovely webinar. And also just to say hello to Mr. Kulwane. It's a pleasure having this engagement with you again. I have just 3 questions that I'm scribbling. I'm not sure if some of the questions will be addressed as the webinar goes on, but it's just things that are coming to my mind as I'm listening. So I'll just ask the 3 questions, and if the Kulwane will attend to them within the presentation, then it's fine. So my first question is that in terms of the Prevention and Combating of Trafficking in Persons Act 7 of 2013, what are the legal risks that shelter social workers face when handling TIP cases without any formal training? And subsequent to that, what is being done to ensure that compliance and protection is offered? And then the second question is, given that many shelter-based social workers are already working with trafficking in person victims, could the department maybe please clarify which TIP forms from Form 1 to 14 are our responsibility, and what training and guidance is in place to support correct completion of these forms? And then the last question, in practice, what is the official referral pathways for trafficking in person victims? And how should shelters respond when cases are referred without proper documentation or coordination? Yeah, for now, those are the 3 questions that I have. I'll keep on scribbling throughout the webinar. Thank you, Anissa.
Thank you for that, Cindy. Mr. Kulwane, are you okay to take them and address them? I think those are important questions, and I think whoever's present will find benefit in them. Mr. Kulwane, over to you.
So I tried to follow, but this echo somehow, it's really disturbed me. I'm not sure if you were able to aid to get the questions, just maybe to also repeat them if you don't mind.
Cindy, you can come in, but if I remember correctly, the first one addresses safety of social workers and shelter staff, and measures taken for their protection when dealing with trafficking in persons. So if you want to take that one first, and then we'll go from there.
Oh, all right. Yes. I think the safety, it's something that we look at, at all times. We do assess, the level of safety, and we don't just do it ourselves. Even that is with the assistance of SAPS. Like for instance, when SAPS refers, they have to also do an assessment of the risks before a victim is taken to a shelter. And then there's also, I think in the process, they continue to conduct, a risk assessment. So in situations where they are not convinced that the victim would be safe in a shelter, then they would opt for what do they call it? Witness protection. So that's what they do. Yes, we've had incidents where I think it was in Limpopo where, and also in one of Gauteng shelters, where armed men did go to a shelter, and then we were wanting to rescue the victims. But this is done mainly by the syndicates that are bringing mainly Ethiopians into the country. And yes, as a department, we've been complaining to our colleagues in law enforcement that we do not want to deal with cases of Ethiopians. Why? Because most of the time you would find they are not really trafficked, but they are just smuggled migrants. So, yeah, and then they come in huge numbers. Yes, so those are the challenges, but we are really doing our best, to ensure that it is safe in shelters. Yeah, but I mean, those kinds of incidents, we've experienced them, and then, had to really look into heightening, our security. I think the second one was around the forms, as to whether are we doing any training on the forms.
Okay, yes, it is related to the forms, Mr. Kulwane. I think also Cindy wanted to know which forms would apply, particularly for shelters who are already working with persons in trafficking. But also just check that, Cindy, are you happy with Mr. Kulwane's response to the first question?
Hi, Anis. Can I please just rephrase that question, or maybe re-ask it? What I wanted to know is, in terms of the Trafficking in Persons Act, are there any legal risks that shelter social workers face when handling TIP cases without any formal training?
Oh, okay. Without any formal training, I don't
Yes.
think there are any legal risks. We don't have any clauses that speak to the legal risk. I think what I've seen with social workers, it's, at the start, yes, it's challenging, it's something new. Yeah, and then with time, I think they get used to and they are able to. But the Act says nothing about legal risks. The role of social workers, as I said, is conducting assessment And when you conduct assessment, you cannot say that you would be very accurate as to concluding that the person was trafficked. What happens is, because we deal with people that are traumatized, you would find the trust level. It takes time for them to start trusting. And we always say that, just immediately after the rescue, it's very difficult for us to conduct an assessment and conclude. In fact, the colleagues are saying what social workers should be saying is that we have identified elements of trafficking, and it is upon investigation and prosecution to conclude that indeed the person was trafficked. Yes, yeah, but so, and there have been cases where investigation and prosecution just continued without us issuing a letter of recognition. So we are just assisting in the field. I'm not sure if this really answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yes, yes. The second one, as I said, has to do with training. Yeah. Well, I mean, we do conduct training, and I'm not sure whether you
I
can
think
just
it
repeat
has
it if you don't mind.
do with the forms.
Yeah, the
So for
forms.
shelters
Yes.
who are already, shelters who are already doing work with, they're not necessarily, am I correct, Cindy? They're not necessarily registered or accredited for working with persons in trafficking in persons, but they are doing work, and which forms would apply?
Okay. Yeah, there are specific forms. I mean, the letter of recognition is very important, and that requires, after the assessment, then it has to go through the head of department to issue the letter. That's very important. And also with accreditation, I think form number 7, that is application for accreditation, and the issuing of the and then the other form, that's form 13, on the needs of the victim. Yeah, those are very important. But even without training, social workers are able to conduct assessment. There are those that have just interacted, with the others, and they are able to conduct training. But yes, we do encourage that, they should be exposed to training so as to be able to. Yes, yeah. So social workers do conduct, do conduct assessment. And those are, as I said, those are the very important forms of the 14. And then the final one, the third question.
Cindy, does that
The third question was, sorry, Anissa, it was
no, I
just
just wanted to check if you okay with that, and it addresses your question for question 2, right? And then
yes,
you just go on to question.
Yeah. So question 3 was, in practice, what is the official referral pathways for TIP victims, and how should shelters respond when cases are referred without proper documentation or coordination?
Okay. We came up with the integrated SOPs in which we have all role players, law enforcement, health, NPA, the whole case. And well, if SAPS, has a tendency of just dumping people without presenting the required documentation, the referral forms. Yeah, we've had, those complaints coming from shelters. We do have provincial task teams in trafficking in which everyone is represented. And I also sit in the NICTIP, which is the National Intersectoral Committee on Trafficking in Persons. Those issues are brought to our attention, and then we make sure that any complaints about a particular department is addressed, through the seniors within that particular department. Yes, it does happen that we try and you find that it continues. And then sometimes you find that it's because in police stations, the person who knows the referral procedures in trafficking, maybe it's off duty and then there's another one, they just dump it. Yes, but we make follow up and ensure that, those things are addressed. It's not easy, I'm sure we all know. Yes. I hope that answers the question. Oh, there's a question here by Tanya L. John. How do
Thank
we
you
get
for that.
involved as ordinary citizens? Can I answer that one?
Yes, sure. Please go ahead, Mr. Kulwane.
I think awareness is very important. Ordinary citizens can sort of create awareness and assist in spreading the message. I always say trafficking is a hidden crime. And hidden as it is, if we keep quiet, unfortunately, young people will continue to disappear. Last year, in December, let me share this sad story. We've had, problems with Myanmar. I think colleagues have heard of young people going to Myanmar via Thailand. And we were bringing back many of those young children. But at the same time, we know of the same problem happening in Cambodia. So it was, with the cooperation of Thailand, it was easy for us to bring back young people from Myanmar. But now we heard that on the 27th of December last year, 20 young people from KZN went to Cambodia. And we've heard that 3 of them, their families managed to pay ransom to come back. Unfortunately, the 50,000 ransom, families of the other 17 cannot afford to pay. So those young people are still trapped in Cambodia. So then if we don't talk about these things, young people will continue to disappear. If we don't take this information into villages, young people will continue to disappear from villages, to the bright lights of Johannesburg or Cape Town, where they are abused, exploited. So then ordinary people have a very, very big role to play. If you suspect that next door, there's something that you just don't understand, people coming in and out, you have the right to report. In fact, the Act empowers you to report that this is something that is unusual. Action has to be taken. The DPCI will make sure that they investigate. Yes. I see Cindy has got a hand up again.
Yes. So, Mr. Kulwane, I see there's a question in the chat box, but Dr. Stanley Mafosa had his hand up as well. So maybe can we take Dr. Stanley? Welcome, and I'm glad to see you've joined us today. If you'd like to unmute and go, and then Cindy, we will come back to you.
Yes, no, thank you so much, Anissa. I've decided to join, and I will join as many times as possible that I can. I love the topic, and I want to ask Kulwane, the presenter, how much of the use of guns do you see in your work in human trafficking? You know, I'm asking for obvious reasons. I'm from gun-free South Africa, so I would like to see the centrality of firearms in human trafficking. Do you observe that those that traffic would be armed or would use firearms for threatening, for coercion, and all that, and to what extent? Thank you.
All right, yeah. No, thanks, Doc. It's like I don't really have to even say how much. Why? Because my assumption is always that people that are being forced, that are being kept against their will, firearms are being used, to keep them in exploitative situation. So then they are being used. The only time that ourselves as DSD, head of, firearms, as I mentioned, armed men going to our shelters in Limpopo and Gauteng, with the intention of rescuing their property, because these people are referred to as property. Remember, selling this person would obviously generate income for them. So if they are kept somewhere after the rescue, they know that they've lost. So guns are being used in keeping people under control. And also we are dealing with syndicates. And as you know, syndicates, they carry weapons. It's like, it's my colleagues, I think in law enforcement, who can give a better answer. Because remember, as ourselves as DSD, our role is protection and care of victims. We don't deal directly with perpetrators, because perpetrators have to be arrested by law enforcement and prosecuted by NPA and sentenced by justice. But we know that guns are being used. Yes, yeah, they are being used. South Africans are using guns. Even foreign nationals are also using guns. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kulwane. So in the chat box, there's a question from Lerato. That's the first question, and there's another question as well. So the question from Lerato is, can a safe house be accredited while admitting victims for not more than 7 days, right? So we talk about safe houses and not shelters there. That's a good question as well. And then that also speaks a little bit about some basic requirements, I would think. Mr. Kulwane, over.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I think we were going to talk. I was going to talk about those, as we proceed with the presentation. But temporary safe care, as I said, is 72 hours to a week, and then long-term care, which is fully accredited. We're looking at 6 months. Sometimes it goes up to 9 months. Yeah, but now there's a problem that we have, with law enforcement and NPA. There is this problem of the delay, in prosecution and stuff. So then as a result, you'd find that victims stay for longer. But we are addressing these issues through the provincial task teams and the national committee. So then, because then, the colleagues in the Western Cape, they always use the example of the young That's Smith. I can't remember the first name. Jacqueline, is it Jacqueline's? No, yeah. They used that example because it didn't take long for prosecution to finalize the case, and the mother and accomplices were sentenced. Yeah. So then Jocelyn Smith, yes, yes. So, but then we would like to see cases being speeded up because we provide our own services in shelters, and then well, we would like to see, the victims being reintegrated with their families. Yes. So, but yeah, but we could say at least maximum of 9 months. Mm.
Good
Okay.
morning,
Can I
colleagues.
then
Thank you.
continue?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, morning,
How are
Morning.
you?
sister.
Oh, my apologies. I've
Good.
been
How are you?
struggling to raise my hand. Can I just come
Colleagues,
in?
can I request that I finish everything before, because then I knew that if we open, I know this is Takalani. Can you please write it down? If we open for questions, I won't be satisfied to leave this platform without finishing my presentation. Colleagues.
Okay, no,
Okay, that's
thanks.
perfect. But okay, so
Mm.
can we, in the meantime, go to the chat, and Irene, there is a question. Irene's asking, are there plans in place for social workers to be trained on restoration and healing programs in the Northern Cape?
Um, with restoration and healing, it's been done by NICDEM, I think. Yeah, that was before my time. It's provinces that contact NICDEM directly, for the training. But I know colleagues have complained that NICDEM charges money, and quite a huge amount, and as a result, many are not. I think maybe if the colleague can ask the Northern Cape if they've maybe budgeted for that. But hence I'm saying, colleague, we need more programs. We need to accredit more programs so as not to rely only on restoration and healing by NICDEM.
Thank you for that, Mr. Kulwane. And if there's anyone else who've logged on, who's part of this platform and knows of training, please, you're more than welcome to share details. And then Tanya also has a question that says, or was requesting details where to apply for volunteer work.
Volunteer work in trafficking. I'm sure the provinces.
Tanya, do you want to unmute and maybe just clarify your question for Mr. Kulwane?
Thank you so much, and good morning to everyone. Yes, just I am in Johannesburg, and maybe even if it's just a voluntary to assist at a home or somewhere, but really want to get involved. So any voluntary work that can be assisting in the course. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, okay, I see. I mean, I take it in NSM, there are openings for voluntary work. I take it that shelters do have openings for voluntary work. My colleague is here, Mr. Galani Sekoba, the coordinator of trafficking in Gauteng. Maybe she can also assist. So then, yes, we do need volunteers. I think as long as it's social services, volunteers are very, very important. So then maybe the colleague can link up with, with the province or the NGOs.
Thank you, Tanya, for offering your services to those who may need it. And I think it also builds on what Mr. Kulwane was saying earlier. And we had somebody put in the chat box about what can citizens do. So yeah, I think that does help. We do need volunteers, maybe just to find out, how we can facilitate the process of volunteering better. Thank you for that.
Okay, can I then complete my presentation? I wanted to go through the Excel sheet, but I'm worried that we will run out of time. I think let me go back to the presentation.
So I just want to double check. Shiburi had her hand up or from the beginning. I don't know if it's just maybe she doesn't know that her hand is up. Other than that, I think we have answered all questions or comments. I don't know if there's anybody else, but yes, Mr. Kulwane, you can go ahead.
Okay, yeah, thanks. As you can see, colleagues, what appears on your screen now is this comes from the Excel tool that we use. And then this Excel tool, we sort of get the scores from the 85-page document. And then these scores we put into this Excel sheet. The sheet does the calculations. You can see this is management and administration, where we have accountability, budget, finance, staff members, and effectiveness and efficiency. The next column here, you see organization score. The organization score coming from the tool itself they have to be put in here, in this column. This organization got 51 out of 54 on accountability. On budget and finance, they got 26 out of 30. On staff members, that is the empowerment of staff members, 25 out of 26. Effectiveness and efficiency, it was 24 out of 24. So the total subtotal is 126 out of 136. So then 126 falls within, that is, it's above 107, which is the minimum. So which means they've done well on management and admin. And then the next one, organizational capacity building. You can see training and supervision, it was 14 out of 16. Empowerment, 24 out of 26. With participation, it was total. Integration, it was total. And normalization, total. So all in all, it's 196 out of, it's 96 out of 100. Then on health and safety, you can see primary health was 55 out of 58. General safety and emergency, 70 out of 82. Child safety, 28 out of 30. Hygienic food preparation, 30 out of 30. So meaning their kitchen is perfect. Then the total score here is 183 out of 200. Yes, then the next one, appropriateness, it's 12 out of 12. Victim-centeredness, 46 out of 46. Yeah, they did well. Family-centered, 30 out of 30. And community-centered, 10 out of 14. Then the score is 98 out of 102. Also a good score. So, and then the next one, family preservation, 14 out of 16. Permanency planning, 8 out of 12. Continuum of care, 24 out of 26. Continuity of care, 10 out of 10. Restorative justice, 8 out of 8. African Renaissance, yeah, then 27 out of 28. So the total, grand total is 594 out of 638. So the percentage here is 93%, 93.39, meaning this organization scored more than 80%. And they would have to then be given an accreditation status, a full accreditation status over a period of 4 years. But what happens, colleagues, it's not only the external group that conducts assessment. The organization has to do a DQA, a self-assessment, meaning an internal DQA before an external DQA is conducted. And we are going to compare the scores from both internal and external for us to conclude. I've seen situations where the internal score was even less than the external score. Yes, meaning the external team from BSD feeling that the organization has even done better than they view themselves. And again, colleagues, as I said, the organization has to assess itself on an annual basis. Yes, what happens is the accreditation renewal is done after every 4 years, meaning after every 4 years, there should be an assessment. So then we cannot wait for 4 years to conduct an assessment. Hence, we have to encourage organizations to assess themselves on an annual basis so as to keep providing quality services. Colleagues, these are the shelters that we are having that are accredited. In Gauteng, as you can see, we have 4. There are 3 women's shelters, and there's only 1 men's shelter. And in Northwest, I think we have only 1, which is a mixed shelter. This happens to be our Kuseleka One-Stop Center. They are able to accommodate both males and females because, it's a building that has got chalets. And Limpopo also, the same as Northwest. The Buti Kulwane One-Stop Center is only 1. Mpumalanga has got 8, and these are women's shelters. And then we have here KwaZulu-Natal, 4 for women and 1 for men. So total is 5. Eastern Cape has got 2, and these are female shelter. Free State has got 3, also female shelter. Western Cape, 4, female shelter. And then Northern Cape, 1, which is female. At the bottom, you see we do have those that are closed. In Gauteng, 1 men's shelter was closed. And then in the Northern, 1 women's shelter was closed. And then also Western Cape, 1 women's. In the Northern Cape, the shelter wasn't closed, but it sort of failed to comply. And then their status could not be renewed. So we've lost 4 shelters. And then this is something we have to guard against. We don't want to lose too many shelters. I've just recently checked, in terms of percentages, how many, shelters that we have. The total number of shelters that are created is 29. And understand we have about 142 shelters in the county, meaning 20% of the shelters are accredited. And our aim is to get more to be accredited. Colleagues, these are some of our challenges and then some of the recommendations I tried to craft. With the challenges, yes, I'm sure you've heard foreign language translation is a problem. So then we don't really receive support from some of the embassies. But what is happening is that the Department of Justice is currently working on development of a foreign language translation policy. And this is done on behalf of the National Intersectoral Committee on Trafficking in Persons. It will really cater for all departments that require translation services. The Ethiopian embassy has been very, very troublesome. They are not supportive at all. And you've heard of cases of Ethiopian men being found in Johannesburg and then some naked and then rescued and all those things. But we don't see them, we don't see the embassy coming, to assist. So this is being addressed through DERCO. And the department is currently addressing the problem of young South Africans that are being trafficked in Myanmar and Cambodia. Then the provincial DSDs closed, as I said, some of the accredited shelters that are poorly managed by their governing structures. So then collaboration between this department, which is DSD, and the National Shelter Movement in capacity building to improve governance and management of GBV shelters. It's what I'm recommending. So continual identification of stable GBV shelters for accreditation as providers of TIP services will certainly be welcome. And then with regards to the limitation of service professionals, I think this is a question that came up. With the necessary knowledge and skill to identify and deal with victims of TIP. We developed a training course that is accredited by the council, that is the South African Council for Social Service Professionals. It is titled Introduction to Trafficking in Persons in the South African Context. Unfortunately, it doesn't really carry much, but we have 4.5 CPD points that trainees can maybe achieve. Then the lack of awareness on the crime of TIP in urban and rural communities where vulnerable young people are lured by trafficking syndicates. We have to intensify what we call Capella. This is our campaign. This is Capella TIP awareness campaign by DSD and civil society partners. So the colleague did ask, what can they do? They need to find out how can they be involved in Capella. Colleagues, Capella is a Zulu expression of be watchful or just watch. Yes. And then preoccupation with the organization of shelter accreditation due to absence of programs. This is impacting on our trauma-informed care survivor empowerment. So then we say effective education, skills, rehabilitation, victim-centered and trauma programs to come forward for accreditation. We would certainly welcome these. I think this is the last, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kulwane. I think that really put together a lot of information in the last few minutes. I see in the chat box has been a bit busy, so I'm just going to go through some of the comments and the questions. So Kululiwe is saying, I'm a social work director and founder of Ekuchuleni. Okay, I'm going to have difficulty pronouncing that, but community development project, doing mental health and psychosocial support, focusing on gender-based violence. What are the requirements for applying for temporary shelter for victims of domestic violence and trafficking? So when we say temporary, is that like a safe house, as in short term? I'm not sure.
Yes, temporary safe care. That is, as I said, that is for a period of 72 hours to 5 days. what happens is the victim, if the victim is identified in an area where the accredited shelter is maybe situated a distance away, then the SAPS can place the person in a temporary safe care facility close by. The requirements don't really differ that much. What happens is when the organization is assessed, those requirements of long term, your we could say permanency planning and stuff, those things are not they are not assessed on those. They are assessed on provision of temporary. Yes, but then what happens is the tool itself, it's able to give a percentage at the end to assist the accreditation committee to make a final decision. So there's not much of a difference. But I think Ms. Sekoba can assist here as the coordinator of the Gauteng. Yes, and I'm sure if there are any other colleagues from other provinces can also assist. Yeah, but as I said, there's not really much of a difference because sometimes you'd find that it's temporary for now, but later on they want to then extend the services and provide, full to apply for full accreditation for a lengthier period. Okay, I think that's the answer. Well, I remember seeing Ms. Sikova's hand up. Maybe she can, in addition to a question, can also address this one through you, Madam Chair.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Takarani Sekova. I am the Provincial TIP Coordinator from the Department of Social Development. With regards to the last question that you were responding to, Mr. Kulwane, from the information that I gathered before I became the TIP coordinator, I was informed that some of the TIP accredited shelters started with being short-term shelters that were providing services to TIP victims. When they saw that they were fit enough, they were capable in attending to all TIP cases, they then extended their accreditation term into a long term. So my advice is for those who are intending to provide such services to start by applying for short term, and then during that process, as the department will be able to equip them and develop them until they will be able to manage services for long-term services to victims of trafficking. I also wanted to assist Buti regarding one of the questions that were asked previously. I think it was Cindy when she was asking about case referrals. In Gauteng, as we are guided by the Trafficking in Persons Act, all victims that are being referred to our attention, or if DSD has been notified of a suspected case of trafficking, colleagues, at the initial stage where we are alerted of a case, we don't conclude and say definitely this is a TIP case. We have to conduct an assessment using a form 3, which is the assessment tool that we use. So once the TIP ambassador has done that assessment to ascertain or to declare that indeed this is a case of trafficking, we then refer the case to our TIP accredited shelters. We don't just place all suspected case of trafficking into our shelters. To safeguard and for safety reasons, we don't want to expose our shelters to each and every case that is not confirmed as a tip case. So when we get that, when we have certified that the case is indeed a trafficking in persons case, we do request the police to complete a 611 form to be attached with the medical assessment of that particular victim, also to be attached with the case, the formal case referral, which assists us in terms of monitoring and tracking of the cases within our province. You'll find out when we do the stats for the province, it will be reported, for example, by the police that as a province, we've attended to 20 cases. However, as DSD, we are aware of 5 tip cases. So if we have a case referral between myself and the DPCI team, rather between DSD and DSD, as we are the forefront officials when it comes to TIP, we're able to correlate the stats within our province. It also assists in terms of providing case progress of the case to the victims, because at some instances, like Buti has mentioned, that the officials tend to dump victims into a shelter without providing progress of the case, without informing them of new developments of the case, and you find that victims, they eventually want to exit the shelters prematurely. So when we know the case has been allocated a certain official, we have a tracking number where we also engage with the DPCI, asking the progress, how far you come and inform come and provide feedback to the victim, as we are mandated by the Victim Bill of Rights, that victims have a right for information. So it also keeps them hope in terms of the investigation of the case. And in Gauteng, we have the TIP ambassadors that in all the 5 corridors that are responsible to assist in terms of providing assessment to ensure that our communities, our stakeholders are able to assist victims. And we've seen the impact, the positive impact of having TIP ambassadors in our ground, in our communities. They are assisting in terms of identification and reporting of cases. We have an increased number of TIP cases that are being reported currently in Gauteng. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, apology to you, Madam Chair, but I do sometimes appreciate assistance from colleagues. Remember, colleagues, I do not really deal directly with victims. I'm sitting at a position where my role is development of policies and programs. And then when it comes to implementation, the colleagues in provinces, in districts and corridors are the ones that really enlighten me as to the reality, on the ground. Yeah, thanks for allowing Ms. Sekoba the opportunity. Back to you.
No, you're most welcome, and thank you for the add-ons and the share. It's much appreciated. It's all for the benefit of participants and essentially for service delivery and for victims of trafficking at the end of the day. I see also people are inquiring about the presentation and the recording. Yes, we will share. If Mr. Kulwane, you okay with us sharing the presentation? We usually do share our presentations and the recordings with participants. So for those of you, I see some people had some difficulty with connectivity. I also have Josephine saying, thank you for the presentation. I see that in Mpumalanga, the only shelter that is accredited was for women's shelter only. Okay, so if there's male victims, that are identified? Can we refer to other provinces that have male shelters that are accredited?
I think in Mpumalanga, okay, I said it's female shelter. I must have made a mistake there because
Yes.
I know of a shelter that is able to also cater for males. Yeah, it's 18 shelters, but there's one that yeah, is able to admit. Yeah, in fact, we've had many cases of males in Mpumalanga. You know, Mpumalanga borders with Mozambique, and you know, cases of Zamas. Yeah, and yeah, we dealt with those. Yes, my apology, please.
Thanks. Ms. Sikova also indicated that she will share the list of tip ambassadors for Gauteng. Thank you very much. I don't know about the other provinces as well, but yeah, whatever information we can get. And then Sarah is saying that Goldfields Family Advice Organization shelter accommodates males victims.
Yeah, that's what's happening. The thing is, we still have to formally, you know, accredit the male section of some of these shelters. Yes, for the mere fact that they've been accredited and we know that they know what is expected of them, and then they open a center maybe for men, they have to be accredited. We've just recently accredited one in Gauteng that has always been for females, but they've opened a center for males. So we have to accredit those. What I know is that they are not under one roof. You find that there's a house for men and the house for women.
Yes, I think those are gaps we are encountering, you know, with the gender-based violence as well. Like some provinces, also there's gangsterism. So the needs of survivors are becoming more complex and diverse. And yes, definitely there are needs for shelters for other groups like males and the LGBTQIA plus communities as well. So yeah, so resources are never enough, unfortunately, and you know we welcome opportunities where we informed of new resources. Thank you for that. Sabella just thanked us for the presentation. Appreciated, Sabella, for the comment. I'm not sure if there's any other comments or questions from participants. I'm not seeing anything. I think we almost on to 11 o'clock. We at 5 to almost 5 to 11. Um, Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join this morning's session. Thank you to our presenter, Mr. Kulwane, for sharing insights. It was an extremely informative and beneficial session this morning. I must say it was very well attended, and it's great to see people from different provinces, different spaces, taking time to attend this workshop. And I'm hoping going forward that this will really facilitate us being able to address or at least provide more services for victims of trafficking. On that note, I'd like to wish you all a lovely day going forward. Take care from our side, from the National Shelter Movement. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thanks and bye. Yeah, the presentation can be shared, and I think I'm also going to share with the National Shelter Movement the names and contact details of coordinators in other provinces.
That will
Yes.
be great. Thank you, Mr. Kulwane.
Okay,
On
you're
both,
welcome.
for both.
Thanks for the invite.
Okay, take care, Mr. Kulwane. I'm sure we'll be in touch. Take care.